Now, another check, including a run-up of the engine. Check, double check, triple check. Then you're ready to fly.
American 1, cleared for takeoff on runway 13 left. Contact departure control, 120.3, as soon as practical after takeoff. Over.
American 1, have you in sight. Climb straight ahead to 1200 before starting turn for Mitchell.
The 7 settles into its climb out of Idlewild. Passing 1,200 feet. Another check by radar. Past 2,000 feet. And on up through the clouds, with radar helping to keep the plane in its own traffic lane. Then, at 14,000 feet, the sun comes out. And it's time for Flight 1's first report to a company radio operator in New York.
New York, it's American 1.
American 1, New York, quiet.
Out of Idlewild at 07, off at 14. We're now at 14,000 and climbing. We'll cruise 20,000 count ATC. Go ahead.
American 1, New York, we have you out of Idlewild at 07, off at 14. You're at 14,000, climbing to cruise at 20,000. Our count ATC. New York.
This report is being written on a teletypewriter, tied into a system known as the 81D1, a fabulous device which controls the communications setup. The operator punches a couple of buttons, and the message goes onto tape and is automatically sent to the right stations out along the line. Down in the switching center, more than 30,000 messages clear through the switching centers every day. More operators feed miles of tape, pounding through dozens of machines. And at the panel, one girl acts as a traffic cop. This flight is just one of the Mercuries, just one of the non-stops American flies each day across the country. But the name, Mercury, is one of the oldest in air transportation. Mercury flights have represented the finest in air transport since 1936. Back then, it was a sleeper flight with berths available. The DC-3 flew the trip. The DC-4 handled the Mercury in its time. Then the DC-6. And today, the newest and fastest of them all, the DC-7, represents the Mercury standard. The 7 has made the berth obsolete as far as transcontinental travel goes. You take off, read a little, or talk, or play cards, eat a fine meal, watch an entire nation pass beneath, and you're there.
Jack, we're in the clear on top now. You can cancel our IFR. We'll proceed VFR.
New York, it's American 1.
We're over Brightonville at 33, 18,000 climbing. We're estimating over Mars VFR, track 1. Yeah, better. Over.
That report was fairly simple. The first officer canceled the flight's air traffic control clearance, the ATC, because flying conditions are fine. They're VFR, which means visual flight rules can be followed rather than the exact pinpointed directions of the clearance. Even when flying VFR, though, the plane's course must be set up so that the crew checks with the ground and the ground checks with the crew at carefully timed intervals.
Passing the mic, will you, Jack? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard American Airlines.
On this flight, like any other, there are two kinds of points of interest. One for the passengers, something like the Grand Canyon, and the other for the crew, their checkpoints. Flying track 1, the most direct route, the Mercury's crew will check in at Mars, just north of Pittsburgh, Lafayette, Indiana, Kirksville, Missouri, Concordia, Kansas, Pueblo, Colorado, Black Mesa, Arizona, Lake Mojave, Nevada, and Daggett in California. On this particular flight, with the 7 cruising at 365 miles an hour, it's possible to have a late breakfast in New York and dinner in Los Angeles, plus a good luncheon somewhere between Ohio and Kansas. 65 luncheons today, served from the world's most efficient buffet. Today's menu includes a fresh fruit salad, a shrimp cocktail, a chocolate nut sundae, and the main course, a double lamb chop, potatoes Parisienne, and Brussels sprouts Delmonico. Another special feature of the food service is the napkin, which comes with a built-in buttonhole, sometimes a young lady's best friend. The food, incidentally, does more than pass the time. Mr. Finchley isn't finicky, but he likes good food. And he really likes that lamb chop. Trip 1's next checkpoint is Lafayette, Indiana. And, of course, the first job of the crew is to fly there. These days, that's made easier because of the Lafayette Omni-Range Station, one of several hundred maintained throughout the U.S. for aerial navigation. The first officer tunes his radio to the frequency of the Lafayette station, and a needle, the one lining up in the bottom of the picture, shows him exactly where it is. This is the Lafayette Omni, a slightly weird-looking device sitting out in the middle of a field. All it does all day, every day, is send out a radio impulse on its own private wavelength, telling anyone interested just exactly where it is. It just sits there, hums a little, and passes out its valuable automatic information. The nationwide system of Omni-Range stations has made aerial navigation a matter of following the white line. If it could be applied to automobile travel, it would make the road map obsolete. Time, 4:30 East Coast time, 1:30 West Coast time. One airplane, the DC-7, and 60 passengers. A big operation. And it's part of the biggest airline operation in the world. All over the system, American Airlines has close to 200 airplanes at work, east and west, from Canada to Mexico. Today is an average day. On an average day, American flies about 18,000 people from one place to another. It adds up to more than 6 million passengers a year.